Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to share a truth that can transform your entire life. Imagine carrying a heavy burden on your shoulders, feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, and at your breaking point, only to realize you don't have to carry it alone. The most powerful thing you can do is to surrender that weight to the one who is stronger, wiser, and more capable than any human effort. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to share could be the key to your peace, your breakthrough, and your freedom. Sometimes we find ourselves in the midst of life's chaos, feeling like we're in a never-ending battle, fighting against odds that seem insurmountable. It's as if we're standing in the middle of a storm that refuses to pass, trying to hold on, trying to stay strong, trying to keep it together. But what if I told you that you don't have to carry that storm alone? That there is a divine power waiting to step in to handle what's too heavy for you? That the greatest act of strength you can display is surrender. See, the truth is, human strength has its limits. We're wired to be resilient, to push through, to keep going even when everything inside us screams to stop. But resilience doesn't mean we're invincible. It doesn't mean we're superhuman. It simply means we're capable of enduring more than we think. Yet even the strongest among us will eventually reach a point where we realize our own strength is not enough. That's when real growth begins, when we acknowledge our limitations and open ourselves to divine power. God's strength is limitless. It's unfathomable, eternal, and available to each of us at any moment. The moment we stop trying to do everything ourselves, that's when His power can come alive in our lives. It's about shifting from a mindset of control to one of surrender. When you try to fight everything on your own, you're basically trying to stand in the middle of a raging river and hold back the current with your bare hands. It's exhausting, it's futile, and it's draining. But when you surrender those struggles to God, you're not giving up, you're giving over. You're acknowledging that He is bigger than your problems, stronger than your fears, and wiser than your own understanding. This isn't about passivity or weakness. It's about recognizing where real strength comes from. The Bible teaches us that His power is made perfect in our weakness. That means the more we admit we're not enough on our own, the more room we give for His power to work through us. When you're tired, when you're overwhelmed, that's the moment to lean into divine strength. Because you weren't designed to carry every burden, every disappointment, every heartbreak alone. You were created to lean, to trust, to rest in a power that surpasses your own. Think about it. How often do we try to fix everything ourselves? How many nights do we stay up, tossing and turning, trying to figure out solutions that only divine wisdom can provide? We try to manipulate circumstances, to force outcomes, to control what's uncontrollable. But life has a way of reminding us that our efforts are limited. That's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of wisdom. Recognizing that your strength isn't enough is the first step toward true empowerment. It's an act of humility that opens the door for divine intervention. And here's what's so powerful about surrender: it transforms your perspective. When you release the need to control, you begin to see things differently. You realize that your battles are not just about overcoming obstacles. They're about trusting in a higher plan. Surrender is not about giving up hope. It's about giving your hope to someone who is able to turn your struggles into testimonies. It's about understanding that the fight is not yours to win alone, but His to win for you. It's easy to say, let go, but it's much harder to do, because there's a part of us that clings to our struggles, convinced that if we let go, chaos will reign. But what if surrendering is actually the act of stepping into peace? What if it's the key that unlocks the door to divine solutions? When you release what's weighing you down, you're creating space for God to move in ways you never imagined. You're acknowledging that His strength is sufficient, that His power is available, and that your victory is already secured in Him. So I want you to think about the areas in your life where you've been fighting to hold on, fighting to fix, fighting to control. I want you to consider how much energy you've spent trying to make things happen on your own. Because the truth is, your struggles are not meant to be fought alone. They are meant to be surrendered into the hands of the one who can handle them, who has already overcome the world. When you accept your limitations and lean into divine strength, you'll discover that victory is not about how hard you fight. It's about how faithfully you surrender. Now, let's move into the second key point, which is just as vital: the dangers of fighting alone. Because if you're not careful, fighting alone can become a trap, a cycle that leads to exhaustion, discouragement, and feelings of isolation. When you're constantly trying to do everything yourself, You forget that you were never meant to carry every burden, every disappointment, every heartbreak on your own. You forget that there's a divine source of strength available to you, waiting to be tapped into. Fighting alone is often born out of a spirit of independence, a desire to prove that you can handle everything, to show the world and yourself that you're strong enough. But what happens when that strength runs out? What happens when the weight becomes too much? Many people find themselves on the brink of burnout, with their mental, emotional, and spiritual reserves completely drained. They become wary, discouraged, and sometimes even bitter, feeling as if life is against them. They carry the heaviness alone, convinced that asking for help is a sign of weakness or failure, not realizing that seeking help is actually a sign of wisdom and courage. The truth is, we were never meant to fight every battle alone. From the very beginning, we were designed for community, to support one another, to lift each other up, to share burdens. But more than that, we were designed for divine partnership. We have a Savior who has already fought the greatest battle, the battle for our salvation, our peace, and our wholeness. When we try to fight every other battle without Him, we're operating in our own strength, which is limited and flawed. Fighting alone often leads us down a path of loneliness, despair, and frustration. It's tempting to believe that asking for help is a sign of weakness, but in reality, it's a sign of strength. It takes courage to admit that you need divine help, that you can't do it all on your own. It takes humility to recognize your limits and open your heart to God's grace. When you try to carry everything yourself, you risk losing sight of what really matters, the connection to divine power that sustains you through every storm. Many of us are battling internal struggles, fear, anxiety, doubt that we try to hide behind a brave face. We put on a mask of strength, but inside we're breaking. We're fighting battles that no one else can see. And we're doing it alone because we've convinced ourselves that vulnerability is a weakness. But vulnerability is actually the pathway to divine strength. When you're honest about your struggles, when you admit you're overwhelmed, you invite God's healing and His guidance. Fighting alone also means missing out on the beauty of community, the encouragement, the shared wisdom, the support that can lift you when you're down. It's not just about divine help, but also about human connection. There are people placed in your life who are called to walk with you, to support you, to pray with you, and to remind you of who you are. No one was meant to walk this journey by themselves. When you choose to share your struggles, you're not showing weakness. You're showing wisdom, humility, and faith. The danger lies in the belief that you have to handle everything on your own because no one else will understand, or because asking for help might make you look weak. But the truth is, real strength is found in knowing when to lean on others and when to lean on God. It's about recognizing that your battles are too big for you to win alone, and that's perfectly okay. It's okay to need help, to ask for prayer, to seek divine guidance, and to accept support from others. Because the moment you realize that fighting alone is a losing game, you open the door to divine intervention and community support that will carry you through. It's a journey of understanding that you don't have to carry burdens that are not yours to bear. When you surrender, when you open your heart to divine help and community, you'll find that your struggles become lighter, your outlook brighter, and your faith deeper. You're not weak for asking for help. You're wise. You're not alone. There's a divine partnership waiting for you and others who are ready to walk alongside you. All you have to do is take that first step towards surrender and trust that divine strength and community will uphold you every step of the way. These expanded reflections aim to motivate, uplift, and educate, drawing the audience into a deeper understanding of divine strength and the importance of community and surrender in the face of life's battles. Would you like me to continue with the next keynotes? There's a quiet power that comes when we truly learn to trust in God's plan, even when the road ahead looks uncertain and the storms seem relentless. Trust isn't just a simple act of believing. It's a deep, unwavering commitment to surrendering our doubts, our fears, and our control to a divine purpose that is greater than anything we can understand with our limited sight. It's about stepping out of the driver's seat of our lives and allowing the one who sees everything, the beginning, the middle, and the end, to take the wheel. Trust is not always easy. It requires vulnerability, courage, and a willingness to let go of the illusion that we can control every outcome. But the reward, peace that surpasses understanding, clarity amidst chaos, and the divine assurance that we are not alone in our struggles. If you've ever found yourself overwhelmed by worry, caught in a cycle of anxiety about what might happen next, then you know that trust is the antidote. Trust is the anchor that keeps us grounded when everything around us is shifting. It's the silent whisper that reminds us that even in the darkest night, the dawn is coming. Trust is built through daily choices, choosing to believe that God's promises are true, even when circumstances suggest otherwise. It's choosing to hold on to hope when hope seems faint. It's about leaning into faith, not just in moments of clarity, but in the silent, unseen moments when everything appears to be falling apart. The process of trusting God is a journey, not a one-time event. It's a continuous act of surrender that requires us to relinquish our need for control and to embrace divine timing. We live in a culture that encourages us to fix everything immediately, to demand results, to make things happen on our own terms. But divine trust asks us to do the opposite. To wait patiently, to believe steadfastly, to trust beyond what we can see or feel. It's in those moments of stillness that our faith is refined. It's in the quiet that divine strength begins to grow in us, shaping us into resilient, hopeful vessels. Trust isn't about ignoring reality or pretending that everything is perfect. It's about acknowledging our fears and doubts while choosing to believe that God's plan is bigger and better than our own. Trust is a choice we make every day, sometimes every hour, when we decide to believe that the setbacks are setups for something greater, that the delays are divine redirections, and that every disappointment is a divine appointment in disguise. Trust teaches us to release our grip on the illusion of control and to hold tightly to the assurance that He is working all things together for our good. The act of surrendering to divine trust isn't passive, it's active. It's an ongoing decision to believe in the goodness of God's promises. Even when life feels uncertain, it's a declaration that we believe His plans are higher than our plans, His thoughts higher than our thoughts. When we choose trust, we're saying, God, I believe You're working behind the scenes, even when I can't see it. I believe that You're moving on my behalf, even when I don't understand the process. I trust that Your timing is perfect, and I will wait patiently for what's to come. That kind of trust is rooted in relationship, an ongoing conversation of faith that sustains us through every trial. Trust is also about surrendering our worries and fears, casting them onto Him because He cares for us. When we release our burdens into His capable hands, we experience a peace that the world cannot give or take away. This isn't just about believing in a distant God, it's about engaging in an intimate relationship. Trusting that He is near, that His love is unfailing, and that His plans for us are good. Trust isn't passive. It's a posture of the heart that says, I believe even when I can't see the full picture. I believe even when the road is rough. I believe because I know the one I serve is faithful. A trust also involves surrendering our desire for immediate answers. We often want God to show us the full plan, to reveal everything at once, and to give us clarity in every step. But divine trust requires patience and faith in His process. Sometimes we have to walk in darkness for a while, trusting that the light will lead us. We have to believe that the promises He's spoken over our lives are true, even when the circumstances seem to contradict them. Trust is about holding on to hope in the waiting, knowing that the best is yet to come. It's about trusting that the delays are not denials, but divine redirections, that the setbacks are setups for something greater. Learning to trust God fully is a process of surrendering our fears, doubts, and plans, and embracing His will with open hearts. It's a daily act of saying, God, I trust You with my life, my future, my heartbreaks, and my dreams. When you learn to do that, you'll discover that fear begins to lose its grip and peace begins to take its place. Trust transforms your perspective. No longer do you see obstacles, but opportunities for divine intervention. No longer do you see setbacks, but setups for your comeback. Trust teaches us that even in our moments of uncertainty, we can stand firm knowing that He's already at work, orchestrating everything for our good. The more we trust, the more our faith deepens. It's a cycle that builds momentum. Faith begets trust, and trust fuels more faith. The enemy tries to whisper lies that God is distant or that your situation is too hard for Him, but those are lies designed to keep you bound in fear and doubt. Trust reminds us that nothing is impossible for God. Trust whispers, He's got this, even when your circumstances scream otherwise. It's about believing that your life is in His hands, and His hands are capable of handling what you cannot. And so, trusting God is not just a spiritual concept, it's a lifestyle. It's a posture of the heart that says, even when I don't understand, I will believe. Even when I cannot see, I will trust. Even when the road is rough, I will hold on to your promises. Trust is a daily choice to believe that his plans for us are good and that his purposes are bigger than any problem we face. It's an act of faith that anchors us in the storm, keeps us hopeful in the waiting, and reminds us that nothing can separate us from his love. The next step in embracing divine trust is surrendering our need to control every detail. We have to learn that trusting God means releasing our grip on the outcomes and trusting his sovereignty. It means praying with open hands, saying, God, I trust you to do what only you can do. It means letting go of the illusion that we can fix everything ourselves because, in truth, we weren't created to carry all the weight. We were created to lean on divine strength, to trust in divine timing, and to believe that he will make all things beautiful in his time. Trusting God also means walking in obedience even when the path isn't clear. It's about listening to his voice and obeying, step by step, even when you don't understand where he's leading. Trust is about saying yes to God's plan for your life, even when it doesn't make sense right now. It's about knowing that his ways are higher, his thoughts are greater, and his love for you is unfailing. When you choose trust over worry, doubt over faith, you position yourself to experience divine breakthroughs that surpass your understanding. Trust isn't just a concept for the good days, it's a lifeline during the tough days. When life throws its worst at us, trust is what keeps us grounded. It's what allows us to say, though he slay me, yet I will trust him. Because we know that our faith is not in what we see, but in the one who holds our future. Trust is what causes us to keep moving forward, even when the road ahead is uncertain. It's what keeps hope alive and keeps us standing tall in the face of adversity. Because trusting God is not just about believing he can, it's about knowing he will. There is a divine power in forgiving, not just the people who have wronged us, but also ourselves. Forgiveness is one of the most transformative acts we can ever embrace. It's not simply about saying, I forgive you, and then moving on. It's about releasing the heavy burdens of bitterness, resentment, and pain that weigh us down, and choosing instead to walk in freedom. Forgiveness is a process that begins in our hearts and manifests in our actions. It's about understanding that holding on to hurt only keeps us chained to the past, preventing us from stepping into the fullness of who we were created to be. When we cling to unforgiveness, we carry the weight of past wounds, and those wounds begin to fester, infecting every part of our lives. We become prisoners of our own pain, allowing bitterness to shape our perceptions and choices. But forgiveness is the key that unlocks the door to healing. It's a decision to let go, not because the offender deserves it, but because we deserve peace. Forgiveness is an act of faith, trusting that God's justice is better than our own, and that his mercy extends even to those who hurt us the most. It's about recognizing that forgiveness isn't excusing bad behavior, but releasing ourselves from the power that pain holds over us. Forgiveness begins with a choice to surrender the hurt, the anger, and the desire for revenge. It's about acknowledging that we're human, that we've been wounded, and that we're not perfect. But in our imperfection, God's grace is sufficient. When we choose to forgive, we're reflecting the very nature of God who forgave us first. We're saying, I refuse to carry this burden any longer. I release this pain into your hands, trusting that you will bring healing. Forgiveness is a process that requires patience, prayer, and persistence. It might not happen overnight, but every step we take toward forgiving others and ourselves is a step toward freedom. There's a misconception that forgiving means forgetting or pretending that the hurt never happened. But true forgiveness involves acknowledging the pain, processing it, and then choosing to release it. It's about reclaiming your power and refusing to let the past dictate your future. Forgiveness is about freeing your heart from the prison of resentment so you can live fully and joyfully. It's about releasing the grip of bitterness and embracing the grace that God offers. When we forgive, we're not just doing something for others, we're doing something profound for ourselves. We're giving ourselves permission to heal, to move forward, and to live in the freedom that Christ provides. Forgiveness also requires us to extend grace to others, recognizing that everyone is imperfect and in need of grace. It's about seeing beyond the surface and understanding that hurt people often hurt others because they are hurting themselves. When we choose to forgive, we're breaking cycles of pain and creating space for healing and restoration. We're paving the way for reconciliation, knowing that it's not always about restoring relationships, but about releasing ourselves from the bondage of unforgiveness. Forgiveness is ultimately a gift we give ourselves, an act of love and trust that God can turn our pain into purpose. The journey of forgiveness is intertwined with our faith. It's trusting that God can take our broken pieces and make something beautiful out of them. It's believing that even in our lowest moments, His grace is enough to carry us through. Forgiveness is a spiritual act rooted in divine love. That empowers us to release what we cannot change and to accept the healing only God can give. It's about choosing to let go of the past and step into the abundant life that Christ promises. Every time we forgive, we echo heaven's heartbeat, declaring that love and mercy are greater than pain and betrayal. We're aligning ourselves with God's divine plan for restoration and peace. Forgiveness isn't easy. It's one of the hardest things we will ever do because it requires vulnerability. It requires us to confront the pain, to face our wounds, and to choose healing over bitterness. But in that vulnerability, we find strength. We find the strength to forgive, which is really a reflection of the strength of Christ working within us. When we forgive, we're not just releasing others, we're releasing ourselves from the prison of pain, making room for divine peace to fill our hearts. It's in that act of surrender that we discover true freedom, the freedom to love again, to trust again, and to live again fully as we walk in forgiveness. We also learn to extend grace. Grace is the unmerited favor freely given by God to us, and it's meant to flow through us to others. When we extend grace, we acknowledge that everyone is imperfect, including ourselves. We recognize that we are all in need of mercy, and that forgiveness is a gift we can give, just as it has been given to us. Grace transforms our interactions, helping us see beyond flaws and mistakes to the divine potential within every person. Grace is the foundation of authentic relationships, and forgiveness is the pathway to experiencing that grace in our daily lives. Choosing forgiveness and grace is a radical act of faith. It's trusting that God's love is enough to heal the deepest wounds. It's believing that no pain is too great for His mercy and that no brokenness is beyond His power to restore. When we forgive, we're aligning ourselves with heaven's purposes, walking in the footsteps of Christ, who forgave even those who crucified Him. Our forgiveness becomes a reflection of divine love, an act of rebellion against bitterness, and a declaration that love is stronger than hate. Forgiveness is not just about the other person, it's about reclaiming your peace, your joy, and your destiny. There will be moments of struggle, moments when forgiveness feels impossible, moments when the pain resurfaces and threatens to pull you back into the prison of bitterness. But those moments are also opportunities for divine grace to intervene. They are opportunities for you to lean into God's strength, to ask for His help, and to keep moving forward. Forgiveness is a journey of daily choice, a choice to forgive again and again until it becomes a part of who you are. It's about trusting that God's love is enough to carry you through every step of that journey. Because in forgiving others, you're not just setting them free. You're setting yourself free to live in the fullness of who you are called to be.